the dark against it all, but made it through the day, 'cause I found my way. I found my way. In bad times, I know I'll be okay, 'cause I found my way. 'Cause I found my way.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Trauma Twins. I hope you're enjoying your day. I'm really excited to share the second portion of the codependency and people-pleasing episode, where we actually take it more in the direction of boundaries. What do boundaries look like, and why people with codependency or people-pleasing tendencies have such a hard time maintaining their boundaries and asserting themselves. So just to recap a little about what codependency and people-pleasing can look like, codependency is overextending yourself, putting other people's needs before your own, avoiding discussions about real issues or problems that are in the relationship because it's going to be uncomfortable or you're afraid of the outcome. It can look like letting people rely on you in an unhealthy way, or having one-sided relationships where you're always overgiving and not getting that return investment back, whether that's emotionally or monetarily or just in energy alone. Codependency can look like cleaning up the messes of other people. If there's someone in your life that's always making a mess because they always know you'll be there to clean it up, that is a codependent dynamic. People should be responsible. We should be responsible for our own behavior and accountable for our actions. Another one that Sarah and I will pick up right in this episode is where we started talking about the white knight syndrome. A lot of empathic people and people who have codependent issues or people-pleasing tendencies see themselves as someone who takes on a role of being the rescuer for others, which is incredibly unhealthy because, one, we can't do the work for other people, right? We cannot do the work that only we can do ourselves. If you have difficulty existing in a relationship where you're not the rescuer, in a role other than existing as yourself, your authentic self with your needs and your desires, and being accepted for who you are, then that's an issue. If we are seeking to be that white knight or that person who's going to save someone, that's ego, and that's where our ego is being fed and validated by things outside of us. But the darker side is when we don't even realize it and we gain validation from something that is not healthy, when our validation should be coming from within, not what we do or what we perform or what we offer others. We are enough just by being ourselves, right? I think we're going to jump right back into that white knight syndrome. Be ready. Sarah is lit the second half and she's dropping F-bombs and I'm here for it. And it just makes me so happy to see her fired up. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you get anything out of it, let us know. I'd love to hear your experiences or areas that you've had difficulty healing within yourself. We're all in this together, and your experiences can help us understand ourselves better too. So let's pick up right where we left off.
You get that white knight kind of response to it of, I can save them.
Yes, that's a darker side of this too. Like when a lot of our self-worth, because we earn love, is in rescuing others, like taking care of others. We get our ego gets validation from being something. That was a big part of my relationship, where I was trying to save him a lot of the time in my mind, even though I wasn't. But
the same for me though. And I remember when you were going through that, me telling you
so afraid to leave
what I had to learn, because I was so scared about his mental health. And I remember saying to you, like, how much of an ego do you have to think that somebody would be willing to harm themselves because of you? Like, that's so egoic to think that you matter that much. Like, you know, it's one of those things where you have to kind of back up and take the lens back and realize, like, okay, they're going to be fine. They're going to move on. I'm not going to shatter their world.
They don't love like we love, right?
No.
They don't. And that's the other part.
And we're comparing. And that's another side of this that can get very dark, is when we start comparing.
Yes. How do we change? We change these patterns and behaviors. We start talking about boundaries.
I think we first just recognize that we have them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first step in everything. Being aware. It's going to show up. all the time in your relationships. It's going to show up with how you deal with people. So learning how to catch those little triggers and be aware of what needs to change, first of all.
Okay, good.
I think that's a good starting point.
So what's a trigger? Give me a trigger for you.
Oh, I know I still can very much gather my self-worth from how I define myself in my work.
Okay.
And so to me, that's something that I have to constantly balance out of being, I'm more comfortable now today with who I am as a person than I've ever been, but I still have those moments where I'm like, am I enough? Am I really deserving of this love? Am I really deserving of this job? Am I really,
this person? Yeah.
Things that I've been gifted, anything. And so I think it's kind of just coming to a place where you're okay with taking a little bit of ego and saying, I am worthy of this. I deserve this.
Knowing your worth. Yes. For me, a lot of times it manifests work, like taking on more, because I know I can handle more in a lot of ways. Like doing more work for when other people aren't putting enough, or like taking on more than I should because I can. Because I know I can do it.
I think even in your relationships.
Yeah, and exactly. But it can be at work and like an actual job, but it also can be, like the emotional work, the doing, like women, like cleaning the house, doing everything and not expecting, not even asking their partners to contribute sometimes. Well, he goes to work. Well, so do you. And now you're doing all the work at home, and like, it just blows my mind, you know, like your partner's in this, right?
We had this is a great example. We had a moment when you came back from a trip with Mom and Mammo. If you don't know, I struggle with panic disorder and anxiety. And it's been something that we've always kind of had to like work out between us, how you can support me, but not be my crutch. And we had a moment where you had just kind of freaked out on me and said, well, I didn't know what you needed me to show up as. And I just remember looking at you like, you have to trust that I'm going to tell you what I need. And, just, you don't have to fix me. And I know a lot of that is big brother energy, but I think also a lot of it is you feel the need to control and to mitigate.
Yes.
And so you're like, well, I have to be prepared for you to have a freak out. But at the same time, you have to trust that I'm going to tell you what I need.
Yeah.
And you can't worry it away. It's something that I have to live with. I have to mitigate. And you come in when I ask you to come in, and kind of respecting that.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of leads into the control piece of it. Even if you don't think you're controlling, I guarantee you're controlling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, we want to structure our world.
Yeah.
Right?
You
our
have
lives.
to be willing to own yourself. And the accountability piece of that is there are things that you want control of. And it may not manifest in an ugly, nasty way as abusive relationships and things like that. But there's somewhere in your life where control is manifesting, and you have to take ownership of that, because that's usually where your ego's at.
Yeah, it's a clue to that's really our wounds, right? Where do you want to go with it from here? Boundaries. What does setting boundaries look like, and how hard it can be to enforce those boundaries? We touched on it a little, but
boundaries suck.
It is, and part of this awakening, this growth, this post, this new life. That's been one of the hardest things, is becoming aware of, like, oh crap, they're crossing a boundary. And before I would have just let this go, but
I think you get kind of more comfortable with this stuff the more the work you do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever do, but I know that we're both in stages where we're not comfortable laying down the boundary, and then not comfortable with the consequence portion of that boundary.
Yeah, follow through.
Yeah,
because there's no sense in putting down a boundary if you're not going to uphold it. That's, again, I think the upholding, it's the hardest part. I can say what I need.
And that's the thing, like, people will push that boundary to see if they can, and then you wiggle on it, and that they'll full force go in.
People are always going to push. Like, they're going to test, especially partners, especially parents, siblings. Like, I mean, people, the people closest to us are going to be the ones pushing the most. You know what I mean? Because, again, you teach people how to treat you, though. So,
Which is interesting because I did a lot of my parent work in my 20s, and you're going through that now.
Yeah.
But for example, my dad, if he pushes religion with me or he pushes politics, my boundary is it's not on the table for us to even have that kind of conversation. If he does, I immediately withdraw myself. And he knows that so well now. He doesn't really ever push that boundary with me.
Yeah. So people will
learn. They'll adapt. You might not like their responses at first. And I think we all, to some degree, know that. That's why we steer clear of making boundaries. We know there's going to be some uncomfortable
because it's just easier to go along with it sometimes.
I don't know how many times I've said that.
But
it's
it costs
just
you
easier.
more in the end. That self-betrayal will come back and bite you. And
every time you do it, your inner child sees that and takes note and is, you're not showing up for me again.
And it takes away trust from yourself. Yeah. Wow. So what's a boundary you've placed recently? I know, right? I'm trying to think of, mine was the religion talk, like building this. I can't share it with everyone because not everyone understands it, which is fine. But when they don't respect it or they constantly push, it's just, you take it off the table, you set a boundary. This is sacred. You don't have access to it. How about a relationship? Is there a boundary in a relationship?
I think I've done a really good job, and I'm not trying to sound conceited or anything like that, but I've done a really good job surrounding myself right now with people who hold my boundaries.
That's not conceited. That's how it should be.
With my personal truth. I think the biggest boundary recently that I've had is political. God, yeah. This has kind of been one of those moments for me. I've always been an ally for the community. I think now, though, more so than ever, I'm realizing how little progress we've actually made. And it's been very eye-opening and uncomfortable to sit in that. But it's a boundary that I've now put down. I cannot be in an intimate relationship or any kind of friendship with somebody who tolerates someone else who's willing to go against basic human rights.
Racism, homophobia, transphobia. Like it's just,
I can't.
It's non-negotiable. Misogyny.
Yeah. It's not something I'm willing to negotiate anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in relationship with you if that's someone you entertain.
Because we're talking worldview, right? Like this is the type of
that's a moral thing for me.
Yes, it's morality.
It's not. This isn't a political stance that I'm taking.
But they're mixed
the
together
morals
now.
of a person who's saying this person doesn't deserve the same rights as me because they're less than. Yeah. That is not somebody that I can have in my space. That is a full on. I retreat my energy. And I think a lot of times for me, my boundary consequence is I withdraw my energy because I have learned my energy is beautiful. It is big and bright. And I'm the Leo. I bring the sun. And taking my energy out is often consequence enough.
Yeah.
People miss that
because your energy is like a form of currency. It's your power. It's power. And so by withdrawing it, and it may not be missed like you think, but that's not why you do it.
I don't even care if it is.
Yes, it's self-preservation, right?
Yeah. You have to get to that point. Yeah. What does that look like for you? What are your boundary consequences?
So I see boundaries now being single a lot more than I did in a relationship, which is interesting. Because, there is something to be said about there's a merging, there's a coming together in a relationship, but never at the cost, it should never be at the cost of losing your identity, right? Your sovereignty as an individual.
Right.
Yes, there are sacrifices to be made, but you're still
and I think you kind of become enmeshed in a way that you're creating a life together. Yeah, yeah. Where you create, an ebb and flow.
Yeah. It's fascinating. We can examine a lot of that, I think. Especially for women, you're taught that you give yourself up to the man. You take his name.
I don't anymore.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, if you put the work in, you get to a place where you don't give a anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
The patriarch is coming to an end.
It's changing.
Yeah.
It's changing slowly, but it's changing. Yeah. So for me, boundaries look in dating. There's like you were saying, like worldviews, I don't want to say a Trumper, but like that tells me a lot about someone right away. Like, the KKK endorsed them. Like, okay, that's probably something
I
we're not going to
can't
see.
even.
We're not
I'm
going to see
angry
eye to
right
eye on.
now.
Yeah.
I'm angry right now.
But the way people treat other people. So you're
Yeah.
out to dinner and they're rude to the server. Done.
Uh-huh.
Done. Because that tells me who they are. That's a boundary. So boundaries are showing up in like people with weak boundaries. That's a boundary I don't do anymore. Because people with weak boundaries, even though I struggle with it, that tells me that I will probably have a lot of issues with this person. You know, not telling me who they are, where they're really at, what they authentically want in a relationship, but also they're going to, it makes everything more difficult because it's vague. You know what I mean? You never know where someone's actually coming. That's a good sign. For relationships. That's how boundaries manifest for me right now. But again, with my parents, like I'm always coming back to moments in my life, whether it's people at work, whether it's friendships that are changing.
Isn't it crazy though how much money can change people?
Family too.
It's a fucking dynamic that just blows my mind, because I think because we had a house fire and we lost all of our material possessions, we very much don't have a connection to the material world. We do and we don't. It's just it's very fluid. Right? We understand that money comes and goes. I think that we both are very good about that.
It can be taken away in a second.
Yeah. We're lucky to have what we have now, but doesn't mean we're going to have it in a year. And to me, it's just mind-boggling to see like families torn apart by wills and like the money dynamic. It's very interesting.
If someone owes you money, get it back. But I mean, again, don't give it away if you can't lose it in the first place.
But then again, you have to own your part in that.
Yep, that's what I mean.
Did you say, I want the money back by this time? You have to, in everything, there's a lesson. And so you have to kind of take the accountability of that of, well, what did I do wrong? How did I not show up here? Did I not communicate that I wanted my money back by a certain time frame? Did I not communicate X, Y, and Z, whatever
that's really
that may
important.
be?
People pleasers are bad at voicing, again, at a fundamental level, voicing what we need, our boundaries. You learn to be
and it's easy to rush in and be like, here's the money, but not say, yes, I also need this back though.
So I was talking to someone recently, entertaining a new suitor, but it was interesting how one of the things that made me perk up is he set boundaries. Like he began a recent conversation.
Boundaries suck, but they can also be sexy as too.
Yes. Like, because I know who you are, what you want, where you're at. But he set it up in a certain way. He's like, this is where I'm coming from. This is what I want you to know where I'm at and my expectations, but also we can't really have expectations, you know what I mean? Because of our situation. But I'm in it, and girl,
I'm in a relationship now where
sexy.
Sometimes it feels like a business arrangement in the way that we communicate our boundaries, and it is the most freeing expression
because you know where you stand.
Yes,
right? Yes.
Where's your boundary on this, and how do I meet you here, or can I meet you here?
Yeah,
and it feels like a business transaction of like, I'm putting out this, proposal. Do you accept this proposal? And no, I want these made, an addendum here.
But this is what relationships are, right? Like,
but this is by far the most healthy relationship I've ever been in. We communicate about every single thing, and I always know where I stand. I always know where his boundary is. He always knows where mine is. And
do you see,
it's freeing.
You hear how powerful that is.
Yeah.
For people who come from these backgrounds that are people pleasers or have a tendency to give away their power, to encounter someone, these are the type of people you want. These are that show up, do what they say, follow through, hold their boundaries. Again, back to someone with porous boundaries or weak boundaries is not a good match, especially for people who come from it, who struggle with it themselves. So be mindful of that, because it changes everything.
Remember in the beginning, there were times where I would say, that's a boundary you set in the beginning and we're walking over it. And vice versa.
Boundaries can be renegotiated. He would say that
back to me. He would say, this is something you said was a boundary and we're kind of pushing it back. So let's re-examine it. To be able to have somebody like that in your life where you can say like, oh shit, I did put that down as a boundary and now I am self-betraying.
Who calls
Let's
you
talk
on
about it.
Who keeps you accountable.
Yes.
That is important.
Powerful.
But boundaries scare us, but we got to also take on, you're sovereign. You can renegotiate things at any point.
Anytime.
You can walk away from anything at any point. It's okay. You have the power and ability to change your mind, and it's okay, because I'm a different person in the next minute, let alone the next week or month or year. Like, we change constantly.
And you should want that. You should want somebody to be different, because life is all about evolving and changing.
You always have a choice.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to assert your boundaries, to step into that power. Own it. Like, you know what? I was kind of confusing. I want to re-examine that. I want to open this up again for discussion, because I don't feel comfortable. I found out
maybe I wasn't able to communicate it the way that I wanted to in the moment. And now that I've had time to process it, this is where I'm actually at.
And if your partner or your person or this relationship doesn't meet you with respect and give you that space, that says something. Then it's probably not healthy. It's probably, do they manipulate you by, making you feel guilty? Oh, well, I guess we can, or do they invalidate what you're feeling? Or
passive aggressive.
Yes. Oh,
that's a tough one. You have to really watch out for the passive aggressiveness.
Yeah, it's manipulation.
Because it's covert. It
moms
sneaks
are
in there.
Good at this. Family members.
Family members.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's moms. I think it's family members in general are really good at passively throwing it in there, and it's a slight, but you're like, it goes right. You're so accustomed to it that
because it undermines your confidence in yourself. Like, oh, well, maybe I am being, or did I do
anytime
something wrong?
You set a boundary,
do I feel weird? Like,
it may be uncomfortable, but the person who you've set that boundary with, if they do not meet you with some form of respect and say, okay, I see it, I acknowledge it, how do we work with it? That is not a healthy relationship, and it needs to be re-examined.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
Oh God, don't even get me started. I will punch you in the face.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I'm not responsible for how you
made
feel.
You feel that way.
Yeah.
That's not owning their part in it. Your feelings are valid.
It goes back to that saying, boundaries are a way for me to maintain a relationship with you. It's me saying, I want to keep having a relationship with you, but this is what I need in order to do that.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm going to have to cut you off.
Yeah.
And that anytime somebody lays a boundary down with you, you should always feel at least gratitude that they were willing to communicate it and still want to be in a relationship with you. Yeah. It's something that's, a beautiful thing, really, that they're saying, like, hey,
it's healthy.
I need this for me to be mentally okay in this. And
to be present and to be like to show up.
And if you're kicking back on that, that's something you really have to examine. Why am I kicking back on that? What about them changing that makes me so uncomfortable?
Well, recognizing these behaviors in others. Are you this person? Are you the one manipulating and you don't even realize it? Like, are you being passive aggressive or are you invalidating your partner's feelings, trying to tell you who they are, where they are at, or what they want, they need? How are you respecting them? Are you showing up for them in that, giving them space to say what they really feel? Yeah, there's two sides. Ooh.
I've caught myself a lot with that. I think the last year, passive aggressiveness sneaking in on me, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't think I did that, but I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, these behaviors come up for ourselves.
We recently digitalized all the home videos we had, and I watched them straight through. I noticed a lot of behaviors where I was like, oh, that's where I get that from. Or, oh my God, I do that. And one perfect example is we were at Red Lobster, and Dad was just pushing my mom and just like trying to get a rise out of her. And I recognize that in you, where you push until you get a rise. And I realized that I'm literally doing that in my relationship right now. And I turned and looked to my partner and I said, I do that to you. And he goes, yeah, I know. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I'm not going to be that person anymore. Because seeing it, I'm like horrified.
Oh.
Why is my dad doing that? That's so annoying. Why is he being so not
boundary pushing?
Yeah.
Yes, pushing.
And then I look over like, I do that to you. Yeah, I know.
We have that tendency.
I know you do. Like, you knew this? Why didn't you say this to me? Like, that's how you are.
That's how we grow. That's how we grow.
My God, I'm never doing that again. So yeah, I've had a lot of moments where I've seen things from our childhood where I'm like, I'm doing that.
That's a great way to kind of pull this all together, though. And like, to wrap up today, as you learn these things about yourself, you've got to sit with the ugly. The only way to go through this is to sit with the uncomfortable things. And the most important part, though, is when you see these behaviors, because we are programmed a lot of the time, once the awareness piece comes in, give yourself grace, being compassionate to yourself, because obviously this isn't who we want to be, right?
No.
But change comes when we allow space, when you start in a space of, I want to do better. I will. And give yourself grace. You're changing, you're growing.
And give your parents grace
your
too.
Partners,
let's acknowledge that. The people
Not
that we learned this
from. Pushing,
no,
like,
but
again,
in the sense of
toxic can be toxic, but
give everyone grace that we're all just doing the best we fucking can.
Not always. Some people aren't always doing their best, and I do want to say that. I want to believe that. Come from that space.
We're all human.
Yes.
We're all human.
Yes.
And so there's a certain level of grace we can give each other where we have to just recognize that we're all spinning around on this planet and facing different things, and we're doing what we can to survive.
From where we're at. From where we're at. But again, stand in your power, though, too.
Oh, 100%.
You've got to own your power, and toxic is toxic
Take
sometimes.
back the narrative.
Let's do a little caveat real quick, though. Like, this has been hard for me. I've constantly brought this up in our discussions. Loving someone from afar. What does that look like for you?
It reminds me of the Maya Angelou quote that she says, like, I can love you whether you're here or whether you're there. It's kind of like a Dr. Seuss almost. I can love you everywhere, but it doesn't change wherever you go. I think that for me especially, it's very easy to cut bridges, and not burn bridges, because to me, the disconnect is how I move forward. Anybody who's a Leo knows this. We cut. I will amputate my arm and keep on walking because I don't want to fucking ever think of you again. But there are people in my life who were toxic for me that I hold so much love in my heart for. And if they ever called me, if they ever sent a message to me that they needed something, in a minute I would give it to them. But I know with everything in my being, I cannot be in a relationship with them where I'm dealing with them on a daily basis, where I have to call in, do the check-ins, and maintain the things that require you to maintain a relationship, because they're not somebody that is healthy for me. Yeah.
So loving from afar, like, you can love someone, but still not have them in your...
They don't have access to your energy.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I find... with me, because I'm a water all over sign, I find that when I have those moments where I think of them, I just send a little prayer and say, I'm sending you love and light. And I imagine in my head their face or their, an image of them. Sometimes, like, I like to use, like, beach. I'm walking towards them on a beach, and I just hand them over, my love and my light. And I'll send it out to them, because I believe energy has power.
Yes. Yep. Thoughts are power.
I believe that, sending that to them will be a blessing to them.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I hope you got something out of it today. And let's keep the conversation going. Like, subscribe, follow, but...
all those things.
Yeah. Put some topics down, too, that you would like to hear about. If maybe this brought something up for you, or maybe you have an idea of something else you like... related or adjacent to this, let us know.
Your personal experiences.
Yeah, we want to hear it. You struggle with codependency? What's people? Be sure to plow your earth sign.
Make sure you do that this week.
That's my favorite moment out of all this.
I love it.
To this day.
In the dark against it all, but made it through the day, 'cause I found my way. I found my way. In bad times, I know I'll be okay, 'cause I found my way.